Hey guys, Script here with another video. A few things to unpack here today. Basically what I'm going to be talking about is how the Acolyte is retconning and changing things. And so there's a couple articles here I just want to go over. And I'm now, by the way, looking back at my review of episode 1 and 2. You can check those out. And I was pretty light on it. I think in an effort to not be so nitpicky and so negative, I was actually a little bit too positive. Because when I do these reviews, I generally take everything into account. I really watch the story. And I'm not even going to lie, I had a hard time paying really close attention to this show. I really did. That's on me. When I'm making these videos for you guys, I should be able to pay more attention. I just had a really hard time. But there's definitely stuff in there that I overlooked in my pursuit of trying to be a little bit more positive, especially just because I know the third episode, I'm just probably going to have a massive rant about the stupidity in that. So looking back, probably giving it a 5 probably was too high. I'd probably give it like a 3 or 4. Although, again, I still don't think it's an absolute dumpster fire in the first 2 episodes, although it's dumber than I first said. And some of these retcons are obvious reasons for that. It's taken Star Wars 47 years to figure out the most obvious thing about the Jedi. It's recognized one incredibly obvious aspect of Jedi relationships that Star Wars, the prequel trilogy especially, was sorely missing. The Acolyte debuted with a 2-episode premiere on Disney+, blah, 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 blah. From chunkier lightsaber designs to force foo. Does that sound good to people? The Acolyte clearly wasn't mind-breaking with tradition, which makes sense given its place in the timeline. By the way, the fat Jedi doesn't make any sense. They're supposed to be a disciplined order. That's why they didn't have fat guys as Jedi. Like, that's undisciplined. Like, so I don't know, and whatever. As a prequel to the prequels, the Acolyte has a lot more flexibility than other projects have to change the rules of the game. I disagree entirely. It's actually even more bound, in my view, because it happens before everything else. After all, the High Republic era, considered the golden age of the Jedi, and the Republic has yet to be shown on screen, meaning possibilities are wide open. However, while some changes are truly inventive, others are downright obvious. One such change is all about the Jedi dynamics. Despite its obviousness, it wasn't evident in the prequels. Jedi won't always get along. Okay? The Acolyte has drawn much more attention to the fact that just because the Jedi share a philosophy and a way of life, it doesn't mean they will work together or even like each other. That doesn't make any sense. They're not just a philosophy and way of life. They're an order. They have a hierarchy. Like, that's how it works. So, if the council agrees on something, the rest of them say, yes, sir, and go do it, or, like, they didn't fight with them or argue with them because, again, it's a hierarchy. It's not just a philosophy and way of life. And in the High Republic era, when they're at their peak, it should be the height of hierarchy, which is why I tweeted last week that Yoda not being in it doesn't even make any sense since he's the Grand Master of the Order at this point. That doesn't make sense. Yes, the Jedi had tense moments in the prequels, mostly to do with Anakin, and Anakin was clearly ostracized, but there was a general sense of camaraderie that buried plenty of the issues beneath the surface. No, he wasn't ostracized at all. He was given extremely important tasks and failed. They yes, obviously sending him off with Padme is dumb, but it's still a task he was meant to fulfill. Same thing with having to go and see what was going on with Sidious or whatever, Palpatine. Those were very, very key things that he was entrusted with, and he failed in those. That's what he's talking about. There was a general sense of camaraderie. Well, yeah, again, for the greater good, they had a hierarchy, and they all knew that. It's called discipline. Like, do these people writing these Star Wars shows obviously don't understand monks or anything at all. Outside of Anakin, who was certainly an anomaly in almost every way, the closest the prequels got to actual conflict between the Jedi was Qui-Gon's defiance. Well, again, but you're a disciplined monk, so you don't, argue and be an idiot to people. Yeah, you might disagree inside, but you don't make an issue out of it, make a scene, because you're a mature monk who controls his emotions. The Acolyte has already proven it won't be following the prequel trilogy's pattern of harmonious decision-making and friendly relationships. I wouldn't even call them necessarily friendly. Obi-Wan and Anakin were buddies, but I would call them polite and mature. Like, that's the whole thing. It's a discipline. It's like when you grow up and mature, you know, you're not going to get all emotional all the time and yell and scream and cry like a baby when you don't get your way. You're going to be polite about it. Okay, sir, yes. Okay, good. I mean, friendly, okay, I guess. In fact, the Master Soul expressed sadness that Master Indara, who he described as his friend, had died. He remained emotionally distant while discussing her passing. Yeah, yes, because that's the one good thing they did in this show was his character is like a Qui-Gon, so he displays discipline and he doesn't get emotional and he accepts her passing. That's what right at the beginning, like Obi-Wan accepted his own passing when he gives himself up when he's fighting Vader in the very first film. Death is not something that they like freak out about. This is very normal. Moreover, Master Soul already hasn't hesitated to critique the Jedi's need to meet and come to an agreement over issues rather than take action when a problem arises. Well, yeah, that's because he's a monk. So far, dynamics in the Acolyte have been more reminiscent of the tense conversations among the New Republic senators in Ahsoka. Yes! Because these writers don't understand, and the New Republic had to be morons. See, the whole reason the Jedi were what they were and were around for so long is because they had a dynamic of the hierarchy, it was organized, and they had to come to agreements on issues, especially the council, and there was a role for everybody to play. But in Ahsoka, the reason the New Republic is written the way they're written is because they have to be stupid. There's this whole movement these days to like just be mush, like no organization, like that. I guess if you want to present the New Republic as stupid, well, you kind of have to, right? Because otherwise, how does the First Order rise? That's the only way they know how to write anything, is to make the good guys dumb. So they made the New Republic dumb in the sense that they weren't following a proper order. It's the Jedi Order. It's not the Jedi bunch of guys. It's not just the Jedi philosophy. Like, Jedi Padawan Jeki Leon and Jedi Knight Yord also make clear that not all Jedi are going to get along. While yes, Anakin and Obi-Wan had plenty of banter with one another, Jeki and Yord are much more genuinely antagonistic to one another. Yeah, I mentioned that in my review. She's extremely irritating. She's a Padawan who's totally disrespectful to a Jedi Master or a Jedi Knight who's above her in the hierarchy. Why would, at the peak of supposedly the peak of their order, of their power, of their whatever, of their influence in the galaxy, why would a Padawan have the gall to be talking down to a Jedi Knight? Yes, Anakin once in a while would maybe do something or say something that was a little contrary to Obi-Wan, but ultimately he always fell under his authority, and he certainly didn't have an attitude until the very end, of course, when he decided to just throw it all away. So no, it doesn't make any sense. This is supposed to be the peak of their order. In fact, Jeki clearly undermines Yord's plan at one point, which is okay. You can do that. It's the way she says it. You can say, hey, I have this other plan that maybe we should do, and then talk about it, but she does it in a very obtuse way. She's very kind of snarky about it, which again doesn't make sense. Again, this is the peak of their order. And when Master Soul sides with Jeki, Yord is visibly annoyed. That's okay. That's fine. But that doesn't necessarily mean he's annoyed because she figured out a better plan. He might just be annoyed because he disagrees with that's a better plan. He maybe thinks his plan is better. It doesn't mean he's mad about her. Ultimately, this is a much more realistic representation of how things really would have operated in the Jedi Order. Yeah, because the guy who created it and made the first 6 films had no idea how to make it realistic. You guys do. Leslie Headland knows how. 40 years later, with her show, with her streaming show, like this is just. But this is how you have to view it if you have to force yourself into believing that this show is good. The truth. The Jedi of the prequel trilogy area weren't really getting along so perfectly either. That's abundantly clear given the Jedi who left the Order from Count Dooku to Ahsoka Tano. There was plenty of tension, disillusionment, and even resentment within the Order that was going unaddressed. To an extent, yeah. But again, you're giving a guy like Count Dooku an excuse. Like, so Count Dooku decides to go dark and literally falls under the authority of a Sith Lord. So he's just turned into a bad guy. I don't think you can be like, well, it's because the Jedi weren't getting along. What were they supposed to do? You know what? Dooku's right. We should all fall under the authority of the Sith Lord. Yeah, what a bunch of... We're so stupid. And so they just have harmony for the sake of having harmony? That's not how it works, man. After all, pretending to be Ahsoka's friend while really despising what the Jedi had become was how Barriss Offee initially successfully flamed Ahsoka. Yeah, whatever. I don't care about the Clone Wars. Perhaps this very light being shed upon the Jedi not always working well together, the Acolyte will elucidate why the prequel trilogy Jedi, the Jedi Council in particular, were so focused on being unanimously unified. No, it's an order. It has to be. For now, though, it's clear the Jedi Acolyte won't shy away from the truth about the Jedi dynamics. The truth. Yeah, you're going to retcon the Jedi dynamic in like a stupid streaming show made by an activist. Like, and you think that people are going to be like, yeah, it's good. That's what it should be. Yeah, not the movies we watched our whole lives and everything else. Yeah, it's good. And again, I go back to it. I've said this many times. You guys know this. The Clone Wars really started a lot of this nonsense. And George should have been more heavily involved in the Clone Wars. He unfortunately was just busy and wasn't. He stopped by here and there, but he trusted Filoni and trusted some of those people. And unfortunately, yeah, it is what it is. So that's really stupid. And really quickly, Star Wars has turned its first Jedi power into a symbol of the dark side. There have been many Force powers showcased in Star Wars, but for the franchise recently began to redefine its very first and turn it into a dark side ability. Oh yeah, okay. Throughout the Star Wars timeline, the Jedi and Sith alike have revealed unique and powerful abilities. They give Force users their true power, and they're the reason some of the most powerful Jedi ever earns their spot on the list. Force powers aren't always good, though, and Star Wars is beginning to dive into that idea even more. Except when you're talking about, like, the main hero of Star Wars. He never really got that adept in the Force. He actually ended up just letting himself, he threw his lightsaber away and didn't do anything. So that's how he defeated evil. So Force abilities isn't the be-all, end-all. The Jedi mind trick was the first time Star Wars ever showed the power of the Force in a Star Wars movie. Obi-Wan Kenobi used it in the original Star Wars, later retitled A New Hope, when he and Luke Skywalker needed to get through an Imperial checkpoint on the way to Mos Eisley. Since then, more and more Force powers have been added to canon on both the light and dark sides. Now, Star Wars is not only adding a power, but transforming one from a tool of light to a symbol of the dark side. It had been used long before... Oh yeah, it's been used long before A New Hope. During the High Republic era, Jedi mind tricks were known as the Mind Touch, and while the Order did allow its use, it was generally seen as something to be avoided. Okay, fine. Yeah, you shouldn't just be running around using it all the time. Master Avar Kriss, for example, mentioned that she saw the Mind Touch as focused intervention in another person's path, and preferred using different means to find out what a person was thinking. They weren't always considered a tool for good, and looking deeper into mind tricks reveals why. They were used for good in the Lucas 6 films, I'll tell you that much. Performing a mind trick requires a few dark things from a Jedi. It required them to have a very low opinion of others. You're right. It's just like Dooku. They should have had a high opinion of him when he fell under the wing of Darth Sidious. Just think everyone's great all the time, no matter what they do. This was stated rather overtly by Obi-Wan when he said that it only works on the weak-minded. Yeah, it was a stormtrooper. What are we saying? Stormtroopers are like these smart guys? The whole point is, and of course this is before the Disney era, right? Before they were kidnapped as children or whatever and given a number, right, with Finn. When you watch that movie, you're like, okay, these guys are part of the bad guys. They joined the Empire. They're bad. So saying you have a low opinion of them, yeah. Yes. And then they turned them into, it wasn't their choice. They had to be stormtroopers. That negative view is also an inherent part of the Force power. Mind tricks are at their core about overriding another person's free will and forcing them to comply with the user's command. It meant that they viewed their own goal as more important than the other person's agency. Yes! Yes! That's the whole point of the Jedi Order. They're monks. They're trying to protect the galaxy from evil. Why is this so hard for people to understand? They're just trying to make it a gray... You know when you, like, chew, like, gum when you're a kid and you chew, like, different flavors? Like, different colored flavors, like, of, like, Hubba Bubba or whatever. And then at the end, when you pull it out of your mouth or spit it out, it's just a gray, disgusting-looking lump. That's what these people want. Instead of clear delineated lines and clear colors of gum, they want that gross, gray, flavorless crap that you get after chewing multiple pieces, multiple colors. They viewed their goals as more important, of course, and they saw the other person as nothing more than an obstacle. Of course they were! Stormtroopers at checkpoints are obstacles! Like, what are you talking about? Watto was an obstacle to getting Anakin out of there. Like, this is not hard. Mind tricks were also evidence, and it actually shows the Jedi are even better, because ultimately, if Obi-Wan wanted to, he could have just pulled out his lightsaber and slaughtered all those stormtroopers. And he didn't. He just did a mind trick on the guy and kept the peace. Peacekeepers, Jedi, Dee! Mind tricks were also evidence of the Jedi's arrogance. They required the Jedi to see their enemies as less than them. They had to get they could have just killed them. But seeing someone as beneath them also meant they saw themselves as better. No, it doesn't. It means they have a goal they're trying to achieve. I gotta get Luke off the planet. These guys are in the way. I'm not gonna cause a scene. I'm not gonna kill them all. I'm gonna do a very simple little mind trick because I'm a good guy and I want to get us out of here in peace without having a huge issue. And additionally, the very act of entering someone's mind and overriding their free will is extremely self-centered. Jedi... Yeah, they should have just let the stormtroopers take Luke. Jedi might have had the ability to use mind tricks, but they also gave themselves the right to use them. They even went so far as to justify mind tricks as being for the greater good. You guys are nuts. It's important to know that in the Acolyte, the Jedi were at the height of their power. They were the most dominant force in the galaxy, and the mind trick was symbolic of that. They had the power to override someone else's free will, and they used it whenever they felt the need. Perhaps the best example, when Yord Fandar tried to mind trick one of the Trade Federation members only for the other one to tell him he wanted what he wanted anyway. He didn't need to use it, but his arrogance as a Jedi... He was trying to figure out... That's so stupid. Kylo Ren understood the dark side, blah, 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 blah. Again, he's using it for bad means, to harm people. Like, he's trying to get information so he can go kill a bunch of people. That's not the same as being like, you're going to let us through this checkpoint. Like, come on. In many ways, the mind trick is a gateway to the dark side. No, it's not. It's you. You being a bad person and selfish is the gateway. Did you guys even watch the movies when Yoda talks about it? And that has serious implications for the Acolyte. The fact that they use it so freely, even when just 100 years prior it was frowned upon, shows that the High Republic was coming to an end and the problems with the prequel trilogy had already begun. No, that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. They're using it too much because the writers just want to keep using it because they're crappy writers. Their use of mind tricks are also early proof that characters like May, Khmer, and the Sith Lord have legitimate criticisms. No, it's not. No, again, it's not a gray piece of gum that you spit out. It's clear delineated lines, good and evil. George Lucas has made this so clear so many times. They are destroying Star Wars. Thanks for watching, guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section. And if you like this content, please like, subscribe, and have yourselves a really good day.